Snow. Falling thick, falling relentless, falling like the universe was trying to bury something that was supposed to happen. A quarterback stands on the sideline. His breath creates small clouds that disappear into the frozen Massachusetts night. His jersey is soaked. His body aches from 3 hours of combat in conditions that no human being should endure. But he is smiling. Because with 1 minute and 43 seconds remaining, his team has the football. His team has the lead. His team is about to end the New England Patriots season and advance to the AFC Championship. 15 years. That is how long he has waited for this moment. 15 years of being told he was not good enough. 15 years of watching other quarterbacks get opportunities that should have been his. 15 years of wandering through an NFL wilderness that nearly consumed his career. And now, finally, redemption is within reach. He watches his defense take the field for what should be the final series. He watches Charles Woodson, the best playmaker on the roster, line up for a blitz that will seal the victory. What happens over the next 90 seconds will haunt this quarterback for the rest of his life. But I'm not going to tell you what happened yet. First, I need to tell you something that makes this story so much worse, something that transforms this from a football tragedy into something almost too cruel to believe. This quarterback was drafted by the New England Patriots. Let that sink in. The team that is about to break his heart, the team that is about to steal his destiny, the team that will launch a dynasty while his career crumbles into nothing. They had him first, they chose him, and then they threw him away. In 1987, the New England Patriots selected a quarterback out of the University of Delaware with their 4th-round pick. They saw something in him. Enough to spend valuable draft capital, enough to bring him into their organization, and then they buried him. For 3 seasons, this quarterback sat on the Patriots bench. He watched other quarterbacks start. He watched other quarterbacks fail. He waited for an opportunity that never came. New England did not want him. They made that clear. He was a body in practice, a clipboard holder on Sundays, a forgotten investment that would never pay dividends. In 1990, they released him. And here is where most stories would end. A 4th-round pick who never got a chance, a quarterback lost to history, another name on the endless list of players who almost made it but did not. But this quarterback refused to disappear. He signed with the Minnesota Vikings. He waited behind Wade Wilson and Rich Gannon. He learned, he grew, he prepared. Wait, I need to stop here. I need to tell you something that changes this entire story. The quarterback I am describing, the one the Patriots drafted and discarded, the one who wandered through the NFL for over a decade searching for his chance. His name is not important yet. What is important is what he did with the years of rejection. He did not become bitter. He did not quit. He did not accept the narrative that the NFL had written for him. Instead, he studied. He watched film with obsessive intensity. He learned offensive systems that he might never get to run. He prepared for a moment that might never arrive. 7 different teams, 7 different systems, 7 different coaches telling him he was not quite good enough to be a starter. Minnesota, Washington, Kansas City, more waiting, more watching, more preparing for something that seemed increasingly impossible. By 1999, he was 33 years old. In football terms, he was ancient. Quarterbacks his age were retiring, not chasing starting jobs. The window that had never fully opened was now rapidly closing. And then the Oakland Raiders called. John Gruden had just taken over as head coach. He was building something new in Oakland. He needed a quarterback who could execute his complex offense. He needed someone smart enough to handle the system and tough enough to survive the AFC West. He needed someone the NFL had underestimated. The 33-year-old quarterback signed with Oakland. He expected to compete for a backup job. He expected maybe a few spot starts. He expected one final chance to prove he belonged before walking away from the game forever. What he got was resurrection. John Gruden saw something in this quarterback that 7 previous teams had missed. He saw intelligence that bordered on genius. He saw a work ethic that put younger players to shame. He saw a competitor who had been forged in the fire of constant rejection. Gruden named him the starter, and everything changed.
In his first full season as the Raiders quarterback, he threw for over 3,000 yards. He made the Pro Bowl. He silenced every doubter who had ever written him off. But that was just the beginning. The following season, he threw for over 3,000 yards again, another Pro Bowl selection. The Raiders became one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC, and by 2001, this quarterback had become something nobody had predicted. He had become elite. 35 years old, an age when most quarterbacks are declining, and he was playing the best football of his entire life. The Raiders finished the regular season 10-6. They earned a wild-card playoff spot. They demolished the New York Jets in the first round, winning 38-24. Next up, the New England Patriots. In Foxborough, in January. The same franchise that had drafted this quarterback 14 years earlier. The same franchise that had deemed him not good enough. The same franchise that had thrown him away like garbage. Now they would face him with a trip to the AFC Championship on the line. Do you understand what this game meant to him? This was not just a playoff game. This was vindication. This was proof that the Patriots had made the greatest mistake in their franchise history. This was the universe finally delivering the justice that had been denied for so long. And for 58 minutes, that justice was being delivered. The Raiders controlled the game. Their defense harassed Tom Brady, the Patriots' young quarterback who was making just his second career playoff start. Their offense moved the ball despite conditions that made passing nearly impossible. With 1 minute and 43 seconds remaining, Oakland led 13-10. The Patriots faced 1st and 10 from their own 46-yard line. 2 stops, and the game was over. Charles Woodson came on a corner blitz. He was unblocked. Tom Brady never saw him. Woodson's arm crashed into Brady just as the quarterback was pulling the ball back toward his body. The football came loose. It bounced on the frozen turf. Raiders linebacker Greg Beaker dove on it. The Raiders sideline erupted. Players were celebrating. The quarterback on the sideline, the one who had waited 15 years for this moment, pumped his fist in triumph. It was over. They had won. The Patriots' dynasty died in the snow before it ever began. Except referee Walt Coleman was walking toward the replay monitor. 4 minutes passed. 4 minutes of frozen silence. 4 minutes of a quarterback watching his vindication hang suspended in the winter air. Then Coleman emerged and spoke words that still echo through NFL history. After reviewing the play, the quarterback's arm was going forward. It is an incomplete pass. Incomplete pass.
Not a fumble. Patriots ball. Life for New England. Death for everything the Raiders quarterback had been building toward. Adam Vinatieri kicked a field goal to tie the game. In overtime, he kicked another to win it. Patriots 20-16, Raiders 13. And a 35-year-old quarterback who had finally reached the promised land watched it all slip away because of a rule that the NFL would later admit was so flawed they eliminated it entirely. His name was Rich Gannon, and the snow that fell that night buried more than a football game. It buried a decade and a half of struggle. It buried the sweetest revenge story the NFL had ever seen. It buried a man's last best chance at proving the Patriots wrong. But here is what makes this story even more devastating. Rich Gannon did not give up after the Tuck Rule game. He came back the following season with a fury that shocked the football world. 2002, the greatest statistical season by a quarterback in NFL history to that point. 4,689 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, a completion percentage that led the league. Rich Gannon won the NFL Most Valuable Player award at 37 years old, an age when quarterbacks are supposed to be finished, an age when the body breaks down and the mind slows. He was better than he had ever been, and this time, nobody would stop him. The Raiders went 12-4. They earned the #1 seed in the AFC. They destroyed the New York Jets in the divisional round. They crushed the Tennessee Titans in the AFC Championship. Super Bowl 37, Tampa Bay, Florida. Rich Gannon versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was it. This was the redemption that the Tuck Rule game had stolen. This was the championship that would validate 20 years of struggle and rejection. But the universe was not finished being cruel to Rich Gannon. Standing on the opposite sideline was John Gruden, the same John Gruden who had resurrected Gannon's career in Oakland,
the same John Gruden who had installed every play, every audible, every tendency that Gannon would use in the Super Bowl. Gruden had been traded to Tampa Bay after the 2001 season. He had spent an entire year preparing to face the offense he had built. He knew everything, every signal, every formation, every adjustment Gannon would make at the line of scrimmage. Rich Gannon never had a chance. 5 interceptions, 3 returned for touchdowns, the most humiliating performance by a quarterback in Super Bowl history. Final score, Tampa Bay 48, Oakland 21. Watch the footage from that game. Watch Gannon's face after each interception. Watch the confusion transform into despair. Watch a man realize that the universe has played the cruelest joke imaginable on his life. He had escaped the snow in Foxborough, only to find a different kind of destruction waiting in Tampa. The tuck rule game stole his revenge against the Patriots. The Super Bowl stole his championship, and Rich Gannon had nothing left to give. But even then, the cruelty was not complete. 2003, Gannon returned for one more season. He was 38 years old. His body was breaking down, but he refused to end his career on the nightmare of Super Bowl 37. Week 2, Broncos, Denver. Gannon dropped back to pass. He released the football, and as his arm came forward, Denver linebacker Carl Mecklenburg crashed into him. Gannon's shoulder exploded. He lay on the field, clutching an injury that everyone watching knew was catastrophic. The man who had survived 15 years of rejection, who had overcome the tuck rule game, who had endured the Super Bowl humiliation, could not survive his own body betraying him. Rich Gannon never played another NFL game.
His career ended not with triumph, not with vindication, but with a shoulder injury in a meaningless September contest against a division rival. 20 years of professional football, 17 seasons, 4 Pro Bowls, 1 MVP award, 0 championships, and one night in the snow that changed everything. Let me tell you what haunts Rich Gannon to this day. If the tuck rule is called correctly, if the fumble stands, the Raiders run out the clock and win that game. They advance to Pittsburgh for the AFC Championship, where they would have been heavily favored. The Super Bowl that year was in New Orleans. The opponent would have been the St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf. A high-scoring affair perfectly suited to the Raiders' offense. Rich Gannon could have won a Super Bowl at 36 years old. He could have been remembered as one of the greatest comeback stories in sports history. He could have proven that the Patriots made the worst personnel decision any franchise has ever made. Instead, the Patriots won that Super Bowl. Tom Brady became a star. The dynasty began. And Rich Gannon became a footnote in someone else's legend. Every time Brady wins another championship, the tuck rule game gets mentioned. Every time the Patriots are celebrated as the greatest dynasty in NFL history, Rich Gannon's face appears briefly in the montage of defeated opponents. He is remembered not for what he accomplished, but for what was taken from him. That is the cruelest part of this story. Rich Gannon's legacy is defined by a play he did not make, a call he could not control, a rule that the NFL would later acknowledge should never have existed. He did everything right. He waited his turn. He worked harder than anyone around him. He refused to quit when every rational analysis said he should. And the reward for all that perseverance was having his greatest moments stolen by a technicality. Rich Gannon is now a football analyst. He appears on television. He discusses games with professional detachment. He rarely talks about the tuck rule game unless specifically asked. But when he does discuss it, something changes in his voice. A tightness appears, a pain that 20 years have not healed. Because Rich Gannon knows what was taken from him. He knows how close he came to a completely different legacy. He knows that somewhere in an alternate universe, he is remembered as a Super Bowl champion rather than a cautionary tale. The snow fell in Foxborough on January 19, 2002. It fell on a football game that should have ended one way and instead ended another. It fell on the dreams of a quarterback who had waited 15 years for his moment. And when that snow melted, everything Rich Gannon had built melted with it. Tom Brady played 23 more seasons. He won 7 Super Bowl championships. He became the greatest quarterback in NFL history. Rich Gannon played 2 more seasons. He won 0 championships. He became the answer to a trivia question. Same game, same snow, same controversial call. 2 completely different destinies. The Patriots threw Rich Gannon away in 1990. They decided he was not good enough to be their quarterback. And then, 14 years later, they took everything from him because of a rule that rewarded their young quarterback for fumbling the football. There is poetry in that cruelty, dark poetry, the kind of poetry that makes you question whether the universe has a sense of justice at all. Rich Gannon deserved better. He deserved to have his fumble recovery stand. He deserved to play in the AFC Championship. He deserved a legitimate chance at the Super Bowl. He deserved to not have his career defined by a rule so absurd that the NFL eliminated it 11 years later. But the NFL does not care about what players deserve. The NFL cares about narratives that generate revenue. Tom Brady generates more revenue than Rich Gannon ever could. The Patriots dynasty generates more revenue than Raiders' heartbreak. So the story is told from New England's perspective. The tuck rule game becomes the beginning of something magical rather than the end of something tragic. Tom Brady becomes the protagonist. Rich Gannon becomes a background character in someone else's movie.
That is how history works. The winners write it. The losers become footnotes. But not here. Not on this channel. Here, Rich Gannon's story gets told properly. Here, the quarterback who waited 15 years for his moment gets recognized for everything that was taken from him. Here, the Raiders' side of the tuck rule game receives the attention it deserves. Rich Gannon was 35 years old when the snow started falling in Foxborough. He had already overcome more adversity than most players experience in entire careers. He was on the verge of completing the greatest redemption arc in NFL history. And then a referee looked at a replay monitor and decided that a fumble was not a fumble. Everything after that moment was damage control. The MVP season, the Super Bowl appearance, the final injury. All of it was Rich Gannon trying to salvage something from the wreckage of that January night. He salvaged a Hall of Fame-worthy career. He salvaged statistics that place him among the best quarterbacks of his era. He salvaged a legacy of perseverance that inspires players to this day. But he could not salvage the championship that was stolen from him in the snow. Nobody could have salvaged that. The snow stopped falling eventually. The stadium emptied. The Patriots celebrated their miracle. And somewhere in the Oakland Raiders locker room, a 35-year-old quarterback sat alone, trying to understand how everything had slipped away. He had done everything right. He had waited, he had worked, he had believed when nobody else did, and it was not enough. Because sometimes doing everything right is not enough. Sometimes the universe makes decisions that have nothing to do with merit or justice. Sometimes the snow falls and buries the wrong team. Rich Gannon learned that lesson in Foxborough, and he has carried its weight every day since. If this story made you feel something, if you understand now what Rich Gannon lost in that snow, then you understand why this channel exists. We tell the stories that the NFL wants forgotten. We honor the players who were robbed by circumstances beyond their control. We refuse to let the winners write history unchallenged. Subscribe if you believe Rich Gannon deserved better. Share this video if you know someone who remembers that night in Foxborough. Comment if you have a story about what the tuck rule game took from you as a Raiders fan. The snow melted 22 years ago, but the injustice remains frozen in time.
And we will never stop talking about it.